Welcome to Work Life by Design. I'm your host, Mel Marsden. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that change is inevitable and we no longer need to go to work to work. As a workplace dynamic strategist and the founder of COMUNiTI, I draw back the curtains on my own business, the clients and projects that we deliver, along with tapping into the knowledge and insights from academics, business leaders and champions of change. I believe that our environments have the power to positively influence our behaviour and performance, inspiring our human potential. Now, this is going to be one of the start of a few very special episodes that I'm going to be bringing to you because we are celebrating the release of my book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential. Now, to celebrate the release of my book, we have been hosting events in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney. And these events are really an opportunity to start a conversation on everything about work, people and place, and just how we can really start to leverage one of our greatest assets, our workplace, to elevate our human potential. So to kick off all of these conversations, we started in Brisbane and I hosted the launch there on March the 22nd, where we were hosted by one of my beautiful clients, Hall Chadwick, and their gorgeous workplace. Now, this was a really wonderful evening because I got to share it with so many people that have contributed to the work that I have done over the many, many years, and also to meet some new faces as well. So that evening was a really great conversation where I got to invite Rob Sendall, the director at Hall Chadwick, to reflect on the journey that we started almost 6 years ago and the continued impact that their workplace has had on their business ever since. Now, this conversation was led by another one of my dear clients, Nadia Taylor, the CEO of Mapien. Now, we completed Mapien's workplace around a similar time frame as the one we did for Hall Chadwick, so it was very fitting to have Nadia come and do the interview between Rob and I to actually understand and dig into how the process went, what we delivered, and how that has impacted their business in the years that followed. Following that conversation, we then embarked on a panel conversation where we were then joined by Jessica Sharp, the Chief People Officer at Entain, who has also been a past guest on the podcast, and Kate Hill, who is the Corporate Real Estate at APA. Now, both Jess and Kate have been recent clients of mine and the team at COMUNiTI, and both are doing great things in their organisations. This was a really cool conversation because we traversed everything from employee experience to brand in the workplace and flexibility, and there was some challenging of each other's opinions and perspectives with some lighthearted banter. Now, if you missed out on joining us in Brisbane, there is still time for you to join us in Sydney on April the 5th. I'd love for you to come along and join us. You can head over to the website for more details. Just go to melissamarsden.com.au/book and you'll be able to save your seat there. If you aren't able to make any of these events, I wanted to be able to share these conversations even wider because we cover some really important topics and how they can be really impactful to our workplaces. And so I'm going to be sharing not only Brisbane's conversation, but also those from Melbourne and Sydney in a series of podcast episodes so you too can join in on that conversation. So to kick things off, we're going to be sharing today's episode, which is where I'm starting with my interview with Rob Sendall, led by Nadia Taylor. Now, this conversation was about unearthing a brand story, how Hall Chadwick went back to its roots to redefine the employee experience. In the coming weeks, we'll be sharing the second part of this conversation, which was our panel conversation with Jess, Kate, Nadia and Rob on all things work, people and place, followed by Melbourne and then Sydney. So if you are able to join us, please do. If not, please come back and continue to tune in to these episodes.
Hello everybody, and thank you so much for coming this evening. I really do appreciate so many of you coming along and joining me tonight. This evening is about celebrating the launch of my book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential. And it's really, really lovely to see so many familiar faces here tonight and a number of those that I don't even know and I haven't met before. So welcome and thank you very much for coming. Now, this is going to be a conversation around work, people and place. And it's one that I think that so many of us are looking forward to, and hence the reason you've come along tonight, because it's something that's really challenged us and changed us over the last few years. And I'm really incredibly grateful for you being here. Now, I first want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here tonight, the Turrbal and Yuggera people. And my book tells a story of strengthening cultures and instilling a sense of belonging through our connection to the places in which we work. This is a knowing that our First Nations people have always known. It's been their relationship to culture and their sense of belonging and their connection to place and to country. So I want to pay my respects to elders past and present. Now, in imagining what tonight would be like, the last thing I wanted to do was sit up here and talk about me and my book. I wanted to use this as an opportunity to really shine a light on some people who I think are doing incredible work in their organisations and completely changing the way that our people view work and their experience of it. They're really working to elevate the employee experience within their organisations. And I have had the incredible privilege to be able to work alongside some of these people to make this happen. Now, our panellists this evening are navigating the next frontier of work and workplace, and I'm excited for them to be able to share the amazing work that they're doing. Tonight, you're going to hear from Nadia Taylor, who's the CEO of Mapien. And she's going to be interviewing myself and Rob Sendall, who is one of the directors here of Hall Chadwick. They're also our incredible hosts for this evening, so this great workplace here belongs to these guys. So thank you very much for allowing us to have this here tonight. Nadia is going to be guiding us on a journey to look at how we created this very special workplace that they have here and the impact that it has had on their business. Then we're going to be joined by Jessica Sharp, who is the Chief People Officer at Entain Australia, and Kate Hill, who's Corporate Real Estate at APA. We're going to be engaging in a broader conversation about work. Plus, you're also going to have an opportunity to ask some questions, so be sure to take note of any of them that pop up as we go. So tonight is a celebration around what work could be. Now, 4 years ago, I was told that I should write a book. Now, I'm not much for being told what to do, so I had to have a bit of a deeper meaning to this and why would I actually even want to write a book? I needed a real purpose if I'm going to be seeing something through. But I also had to get really clear on what it was that why I should write this book in the first place and what I had to say. It turns out I actually have quite a lot to say, hence the reason the book is now 400 pages long and twice what I actually thought it was going to be. I've also written probably 60% of this book in the last 9 months, which was timely because the pandemic has completely changed our whole perspective of work. And even with a newborn, I knew that I needed to ride this wave of change that the pandemic had brought, and I needed to finish this book and put it out into the world. It's a playbook for anyone looking to elevate their experience of work. It's a manual that connects the concepts of modern day management theory with the physical, structural design of our workplace environments. And it explains the complexity of the process of bringing a workplace to life. It highlights the importance of bringing the right people to the table. Historically, how workplaces have been a place to accommodate people, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and our workplaces have been considered a cost of doing business. They're built to house the same number of people that we employ, everyone sitting in their little cubicle, typically under the directive from finance that's been passed down to facilities to execute upon. IT have then been informed that a new workplace is being built. They've got a number of desktops that they need to provide, and HR's told about the new contracts that they need to roll out to their people. That's pretty much the process that we've been through. This book starts conversations around who we're going to need to share this information with so that we can start to connect these previously very disparate functions of our workplaces, showing how when we bring people and culture to the table, how they work with property and facilities, and how when they engage and delivering the technological infrastructure, that the outcome is that we can ensure the creation of the most dynamic and strategically aligned workplaces for our organisations. So to kick off the conversation, I would like to introduce Nadia Taylor. Nadia is the CEO of Mapien and has just celebrated her 25th year with the company. Starting as a graduate, Nadia has combined her extensive employment and industrial relations expertise to see her promoted through the ranks of the organisation to her role as CEO. Mapien are workplace strategists. They are a specialist people consultancy offering bespoke workplace solutions. They bring together industrial relations, culture and leadership, psychology and behavioural science, compliance, talent and immigration. I had the great pleasure of working with Nadia to create their workplace back in 2018, which has been a huge transformation for their business. They originally occupied a space that saw their 36 employees sitting in 36 individual offices. The physical environment was at complete loggerheads with their values and their strategic objectives. And Nadia entrusted me to dissolve those offices and, in fact, any and all ownership to space within that environment. The result was a completely agile workplace where no one owned a desk, but they had the opportunity to utilise a broad range of spaces supporting the work that needed to be done. Now, following the move into that workplace, Mapien recorded their highest financial performance in 6 months after moving in. They went through a significant merger, they rebranded, and they acquired several companies. which their workplace seamlessly enabled due to its flexible design. Mapien are an incredible example of how changing the physical environment can really shift the mindsets of your people and of your business. Plus, they have been certified as a great place to work in 2022. Nadia has also been an incredible inspiration to me personally on the family front. I witnessed her navigate the birth of her son, Atlas, and integrate him into their workplace at Mapien, and how she then paved the way for others within the organisation to do the same. This inspired me to do the same with both my children, Bailey and Nash, in my business at COMUNiTI. So Nadia tonight is going to be guiding a conversation between myself and Rob Sendall, one of the directors here. And the conversation is we're going to explore unearthing a brand story and how Hall Chadwick went back to its roots to redefine employee experience. So please welcome Nadia.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel tonight, but also thank you so much for what you've contributed to our organisation. As Mel described what Mapien is, so we're basically people at work specialists in all sorts of areas. And what that means is our people have a very high standard when it comes to anything to do with change and engaging with them and how that happens. So to invite someone external in to work with them through a significant change is tough work, and I would work with Mel on that again tomorrow. In fact, probably will for our Perth office. She comes highly recommended from people experts in terms of engaging your people in the process, as well as her design expertise. So my role this evening, obviously, is to secondly sit on the panel, but firstly to interview Rob and Mel about the creation of this wonderful space. It's really exciting for me to see this space because it was sort of designed around the same time as we were. And when I look back at the photos in the book of Hall Chadwick prior to moving here, it reminded me a lot of our offices, which were the Livingstone's offices at the time, and it gave me shivers. It's really exciting for me to see premises and also to hear about the journey that Hall Chadwick have been on. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rob formally this evening before we do the interview. Now, if you first look at Rob's bio and when it says joined Hall Chadwick in 1995 and been a director since 2001, you think, well, we're not going to ask him about design, are we? And while Mel is excellent at demonstrating ROI, which is why we went on the journey with her, I think if you delve into Rob's bio, you realise there's more to Rob than just finance knowledge. So while he does have extensive experience working with business advisory and taxation and structures and all the things that go with that, with Hall Chadwick's much-loved clients, he has that broader understanding of workplaces and businesses through his upbringing in a family business. He understands family businesses, but he's also worked extensively from startups to $100 million plus organisations. So you can't work with organisations for that long and not learn a bit about people and culture and place and how important it is to the success of any organisation. Rob also is very dedicated to his family and his community. He has 3 daughters, 2 dogs and a wife, and he's a self-confessed cycling addict and a director of charity Rhine West, which raises money for Royal Flying Doctor Service. So you can understand that he's a well-rounded accountant, and I think we have a lot to learn from him, and you can just tell from this space that obviously it's transformed your typical view of what firms look like, and I can't wait to hear more. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, sir. Come and see, Rob.
All right, so let's start, Rob. Set the scene. You're back in that office with those piles of physical files. No employees could see each other because there were walls up between them. Presumably your lease was up. Set the scene for us. What were the challenges that you were facing?
Yeah, well, prior to, moving across to here, we were, our typical accounting practice, we'd been at 144 Edward Street for nearly 20 years. So the fit out there was 20 years old. We moved across to there in about 2001. It was a 2001 boring ass bean counter's office, to put it bluntly. And the business has continued to expand over the years, and we had one level on level 19. By the time we came around to renew our second lease, we needed more space, so we needed another floor, which we couldn't get adjacent or above or below 19, so we had another level on 11. The practice in itself was really actually disjointed. because you'd go months without seeing your fellow partners or employees in the place. So the light was hopeless. It was, if you're a partner, you've got to have the big office in the corner kind of stuff. Not that I ever had one of those, but it was offices all around the outside and the minions in the middle with no natural light. It was an old fit out and it probably wasn't great when we first moved in.
And so what impact do you think that had on the growth or success of Hall Chadwick?
The practice was a bit disjointed because we weren't all together as a firm. So as owners in the practice, trying to achieve common goals when you're separated like we were was very difficult. We've still been able to achieve, pretty reasonable growth through that period, but that was probably just through hard work of the partners. That certainly our space didn't help that process.
I'm interrupting this episode with a very special announcement. I'm so excited to tell you that my book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments That Inspire Human Potential, is now available for pre-order. This book has been in the making for a few years now and brings together all of my knowledge, research and insights on what it takes to design a dynamic workplace. As organisations are navigating a new frontier, struggling to figure out what's next in today's hybrid and distributed world, how can we leverage one of our greatest assets, our workplace? The Next Workplace will show you how to leverage your workplace to attract and retain talent, increase employee engagement and elevate employee experience, plus deliver bottom line returns on your investment. And to celebrate its release, I'm inviting you to join me for an evening of storytelling as I engage industry leaders in a conversation on the design of work and place, exploring the opportunities for our environment to inspire our human potential. These conversations are going to be happening in Brisbane on March the 22nd, in Melbourne on March 29th, and in Sydney on April 5th. And I would love for you to come and join me. So to grab your copy of the book and reserve your seat at the book launch, head over to my website, melissamarsden.com.au/book.
So turning to you, Mel, given those requirements that Hall Chadwick had, how did you approach the assignment and working out what they needed?
So when we first started working with the team at Hall Chadwick, it was about really having a look at what they were working with and seeing this disjointedness that they had and the old school nature of the way that the floor plans had been approached. And when I first started working with them, they thought that the first thing they needed to do was find a floor plate that could accommodate them as one entire business, which with a business of this size really limited the number of buildings that were available to them out in the market. And so the first exercise that we went on was actually understanding what their space requirements were and understanding what the adjacencies of particular teams needed to be so that we could look at what quantity of floor plate they needed to be going out to the market for. And when we did that exercise, that's how we got to an idea of actually scenario planning these two split floors and how could we actually get all of the team on a singular floor, but looking at how that could be done over two contiguous floors with the utilisation of an internal stair. And so that's how we came up with this option. And what that did was it opened up a whole new raft of buildings in the market, which meant that they had a lot more choice, but it also meant that they were no longer at that very high premium grade building because there were a lot more building options, which meant that the fit out cost per square metre was able to come down as well, like their rental cost. So it's really about understanding the business and getting to know who they were. And part of that led us to find out that rather than being the boring fit out that they were previously, they had this really rich history of who they were. And majority of the directors have grown up in Western Queensland. They have a very large client base that are still Western Queensland based, agricultural by nature. They have a strong affinity to the land itself, even their alignment with Ride West as a charity. All of these markers pointed back to this very strong connection to Western Queensland. And so we really wanted to bring that story to life in the way that we brought the space together.
I'd been through this kind of moving offices before, and it was pretty much the way Mel described it. So I didn't realise when we were going to move that there was this service available. Did you, and I guess in your experience of it, how did being introduced to this kind of service that Mel provides, how did that help guide your decision making, if any, at all?
Well, it had a massive influence on it. And we were lucky enough, we had a fellow called David Goldfinch who was looking, it was our leasing agent, was looking at space for us. And thank God for David, he introduced us to Mel.
Yeah.
And without that process, we're bean counters trying to design and fit out. It's all about the numbers. We had our spreadsheets out, righto, we went, we need this number of desks, and if we can, add a percentage of people to that each year for the next probably 5 years, and then, okay, so we'll need this size of space. And that was our science to it. So getting Mel on board to help us and really guide us with that process, we are bean counters. It's, numbers is great for us, and, the bottom line, obviously important, but we're generally not creative people in terms of what's been designed here. When we first look at this space, this was absolutely just the concrete shell. So that process of getting Mel involved was a massive plus for our business and continues to be. It really was so beneficial. If we move again, Mel's on board.
I agree with you in terms of that. I've seen those spreadsheets with the numbers and everything, and I know certainly that's a tenant representative's approach too. We've got a great tenant representative, but that's the formula sheet. And I introduced him to Mel, and he was like, I wish all of our clients had that experience to be able to identify what they really need rather than just looking at the spreadsheet. So I told you she was good at justifying the ROI. Certainly saved us square footage, that's for sure. So Mel, you talked a bit about the connection to Western Queensland, which is very much of the Hall Chadwick spirit and origin. Tell us about how that's inspired the space and what other kind of elements that you've taken from the Hall Chadwick culture.
So a lot of that came through in the material palette that you can see here tonight. So you would have noticed the recycled timber, the red tiles on the floor, even down to the pergola that's kind of mounted over the kitchen over there. There's horsebit buckles on the leather seating as they wrap around the outside there. But the whole space was designed around its real inspiration to connect back to the materiality and the things that were resonating with what Western Queensland is all about. And so we've gone for that very industrial nature, even in the construction of the stair. Everything's a bit more handcrafted, but even the timber truss ceiling that connects the reception space through into the boardroom, and then that connects through and the big barn doors. So we really wanted to have that connected space from a materiality perspective. But you'll also notice that when you walk in here, it is very open and it's very connected straight through to the kitchen. And that was a big part of the design, because working with Hall Chadwick and understanding who they were and what their values are, they're very much that welcoming, we've got your back. Those good old-fashioned country values were very much at the heart of who they are. And we wanted people to have that experience of them when they came into the space. So the brief was that clients could stay here and continue to work here rather than going back out to the airport lounge. We wanted them to be able to stay here and feel comfortable to be in the space, that staff could sit with them as well, and that they could have informal meetings here. And so it was really about bringing everyone in and making them feel at home and being at the heart of the kitchen as well. So all of those elements came through, and I encourage you to wander up the stairs as well and have a look into the back office up there, because there's breeze blocks have been used. So all of these really iconic Queensland type materials have been infused into the space, but overlaid over the way that the space has been planned to really connect all of those values together.
So Rob, I imagine you had a similar experience to me in that when Mel first came to me initially to say, well, this is what I'm thinking, before she proposed it to the wider leadership group, I was like, oh, I love it, but it's so different. How's it going to go down? How did it go down when Mel first proposed it for your group?
We had no idea what was going to come out of the process that we went through. And to be fair, we were probably a bit nervous about the process, because we had a chat to Mel as directors, well, Duke and I, Duke Warby and myself in particular, about what we thought, the culture of the place was, and we gave Mel our thoughts on that. And then through that process, she said, well, we should survey the staff, see what they want to see in an office. That scared the shit out of us, because we're going, God, we've got employees telling us what they want in a workplace, no, this is what you're going to have. But that was an amazing process to go through, because it actually reaffirmed that we had the same connection in relation to the culture of the place. Because I remember in probably the first meeting with Mel, we said we didn't want to be on the river. We didn't want clients coming into our office going, oh shit, I bet the charge out rates have gone up, because it's, the river views and the marble and those sorts of things. That's not us. And through the process we went through with Mel and the staff, that became really clear. So we actually then just went, Well, through that process, we just trusted Mel and her team to produce a design that we knew we would end up being comfortable with. And so we did the test fits and had a look at it all and came up with what you see today. We had our faith absolutely in Mel, and the concerns were taken away through the process that we actually went through with Mel. So, yeah, it was initially we were anxious about where we would end up. You know, you get these amazing people that, you know, you go, well, I'm spending someone else's money, I'm going to go to town. We didn't get that apart from the rocking chairs that Mel didn't outlive.
I went one step too far and proposed a rocking chair, and that was the line that got drawn.
I missed the initial meeting when we were going through the inventory of all the tables and chairs and what have you. Anyway, there was the final meeting for the sign-off of, you know, everything that you can see today. And we got to the bottom of the list and there's 2 bloody rocking chairs in there. And I went, Mel, what the... You know, I just had visions of a client coming out of a meeting and you've just told them they got a big wedge of tax to pay and they're going sitting in the rocking chair in the fetal position. And I can honestly tell you that was the 2 rocking chairs that were supposed to be in the corner over here was the only items that we put a red line through.
And it wasn't because of cost.
And no, correct.
So Mel, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? You talked quite a bit about the structure and the features, bringing the culture. Is there anything else from the information that you collected in the process, particularly that employee feedback that helped shape the space?
A lot of it came down to the way that they saw the business and the value set that they saw in the business and how they wanted to feel connected to that. And that's what really inspired so much of this as well, because we have the stories from the directors, but we also then have the employee stories that really guide that. And we did something pretty cool with when you guys moved in. It was the first day that they came in here. We had a Friday afternoon drink session and we actually videoed people coming out of the lift and the expressions on their faces as they walked into this space for the first time and just seeing how different it was when you see photos of what their old space was, and we do have those in the book. They like massively high petitions, no natural light, piles and piles of filing. And then to walk into this space, which was so completely different, the looks on their faces was enough for me to see that. It was incredible. But the flip side of that too, and just to highlight one of the points that Rob made, was around the data. So using the employee surveys and looking at the way that information was fed back to us and the process that we were able to take them on. I was dealing with 2 of the directors and you were 2 of 20 at that stage, I think, or somewhere near that.
15.
Yeah. And to have that ability to show that data back to them made it really easy for them to be able to validate a decision as opposed to it being a personal preference, particularly when they were coming to the final leasing stage. So I think you shortlisted 6 buildings. From that, we then test fitted 3 of them. And it was really the test fits that made the difference in the final selection process around which building they went to, coupled with the commercials of the leasing package and the deal that they were getting from Brookfield here as the landlord. And that data was what actually then enabled them to make a really informed and solid decision.
Oh, look, and it also helped from a director point of view because Doug and I had to go back to the board of directors and say to them, you know, this is what's been recommended. This is what we're actually going to do. So having that process that we went through, that was just tick a box in a board meeting to roll through with it and go, yep, we're done, let's go.
So, Rob, like us, you're about 4 years down the track, and I know from our perspective, it's still having an impact, the transformation of our workspace. How about for you? What's the impact that it's having?
Certainly, it's absolutely a positive impact. You know, our staff still love coming to work. They love working in this space. And people are surprised, and I've, speaking to a few people tonight, and, I talk to other, business clients of ours. Our staff want to be here in this office. COVID obviously, knocked everyone around from a business point of view, and you look at workspaces and what's changed from that. Apart from the enforced lockdowns that we had, everyone's been back in the office. Everyone wants to be here. Yes, we have flexible work arrangements, but 95, 98% of our staff want to be here in the office because it is a great place to work. Because it's a great place to work, they're efficient with their work, which from a numbers point of view means they're also profitable. So it is absolutely positive in every aspect, from the space. Yes, it's, a bit over 4 years old. It still looks brand new. It looks great. But the most important thing from our point of view is the space works. And it works from a client point of view. It works from a staffing point of view because they want to be here. And we're more efficient when we're all in here working together. So from a numbers point of view, back to the numbers for us, absolutely it ticks all the boxes.
And what about recruitment? Like, I know one of the things for Mapien is that Mel did such a great job of instilling our values through the design that you can tell as soon as if we walk a job applicant around the workplace, how they respond to the workplace shows whether they'll fit or not. And it's really helpful for us, but also in terms of an attraction perspective. Is it having a similar impact to me?
Oh, absolutely. 9 times out of 10, the first comment is, "Oh, I love your office." You've pretty much hooked them to start with. And in the current environment where it is so difficult to actually get staff, that is a massive bonus.
And obviously financial impact is critical for you. How does it stack up?
Yeah, look, we are continuing to grow, and a large part of that is because of the premises and the workplace that we provide for our staff. Yes, we have flexible working arrangements, but like I said before, everyone wants to be here. We are more profitable as a business with our team environments and the way we work, with our collaborative spaces and what have you that we have, particularly upstairs on level 5, which is the working floor. Having everyone in here and wanting to be in here absolutely assists the bottom line. There's no doubt about that.
Well, it's a beautiful space. I'd certainly love to work here. It's gorgeous. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we move into the...
Oh, really, I'd just like to again thank Mel for what she's done for us and our place. The history of our practice, there is some serious connectivity to, Western Queensland. I grew up on a sheep and cattle property outside Longreach. That's why I stupidly cycle there every couple of years, every 2 years for Ride West. But that flows through, in the design that we have here. In saying that, it's probably only 30% of our client base that is rural or ag based. But the other 70% of our clients, they actually want to come in here as well. Because we come and sit down in the cafe and have a coffee and what have you. So this has been, an amazing place for us to house ourselves, for the last 4 or 5 years. And the ongoing future, because we know there is serious value in these premises for us as a business, and we've got a lease renewal coming up in a couple of years, and we will be staying here and ongoing, but just because it is such a good space. Yeah, so thank you, Mel.
Thank you.